Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves. And just like on Tuesday, thrilled to kick off but kind of wrap up this offseason with yet another stud guest, my man, Ian Hartitz. Now I think the 9th time, the ultimate record at this point. I feel like we got to send you some swag, some gear, man. You've absolutely crushed it on this pod, and that's why we keep having you back. But so thrilled to see you, man. How are you doing today, Ian?
9 times. That's fantastic, man. Yeah, once I get 10, I need a hoodie or something. I mean, come on.
Yeah, 10 times hoodies, no doubt about it. And we got some
deal.
sweet. You got that tank. You're showing off the guns here. We got some sweet Roto Street tanks. We'll make sure to get you one of those too for the summer next year. Everything. But yeah, man, you getting ready for the season? You have any big drafts or anything coming up yet?
Nothing. I've gotten most of mine out of the way so far. I got some extra. I got some best ball balance I got to burn before the season gets going. But I'm waiting. I do have one really big one. It's I'm going in with John Daigle and Hayden Winks from Roto World. We're going to 3-manager. I think it's like $1,800 buy-in or something. So high stakes league, seeing what's what. And the cool thing is, apparently we're allowed to draft up until actually next Friday. So we're gonna have the Thursday night game in the pocket, and then to go ahead and draft. So exciting times, man! It is officially draft season. So let's fucking do it.
Hell yeah, it's absolutely flowing. I had my college buddies draft last night,
Nice.
10 years running now. So always a good time. But yeah, it's the juices are flowing. A week from today, we're gonna have some real live football. So I'm stoked about that. And we also have some huge news, even without training camp, even without practices. So just to preview what we're going to talk about, the gist of this agenda is must-haves. The guys that, if we don't leave the draft with these guys, we're losing sleep. We're pissed off. We're cannot stand looking at ourselves in the mirror because we didn't get our guys. So these are our must-have guys. Obviously, your draft spot will dictate some of that, but ultimately the guys that we really, really want to leave our drafts with. But before that, last night, some huge news. Leonard Fournette falling to the Bucs here out of nowhere. It seemed like Rojo might have been in the clear, but he lands there with a $3.5 million single, prove it type of deal. Arians still insisting, it's Ronald Jones. He's the guy, but the actions just keep suggesting otherwise. So how do you see this backfield kind of playing out now, and how should owners react to it?
Yeah, I'm pretty done listening to whatever Bruce Arians has to say about playing time with these dudes. I think it was Fantasy Points Graham Barfield, great guy, but he'd sent out a tweet, just had just complete slander from Arians over the years with who his featured running back is going to be. So, I don't think Fournette's necessarily going to come in and just get a 3-down roll or anything resembling what he had in Jacksonville. I mean, like in Jacksonville with Chris Thompson being the pass down back, I think Dari and even Shady, apparently, if he still makes the team, are going to be the main pass down guys. It's a question, is Fournette going to get all the early down work, or are we probably just going to get what we got last year, which is like a 33 split? So it's tough, man. I mean, it's pretty good spot for Fournette, all things considered. I mean, the only places that I think would have been better would have been, if the Chiefs or 49ers really just stuck their neck out to go get him, but obviously that didn't happen. So I moved him with the Jaguars. He was, I think, my RB 21. I moved him down to RB 32 now on the Bucs. So, hedging it a little bit, I have him above the handcuff tier because he could, there's a path to 10 plus touchdowns now. I mean, this is a really good offense. And, if he does just get that early down roll over Rojo, he's going to be fine. So Rojo's the big hit here. I mean, I moved him down to RB 39 after he'd been kind of creeping up because, what's it going to take to get him a featured role now? Arians can say whatever he wants to say about Rojo being the guy, but Fournette's going to be involved. We know Dari and Shady are going to be there. I think Rojo is probably 2 injuries away from, getting that 3-down roll that we were hoping might just be his to begin with.
Absolutely. It's a similar spot for me too. I have Fournette higher than Rojo at this point. Don't believe a word Arians is saying. If somebody's going to emerge as the go-to goal line guy, I do think it will be Leonard, despite last year's debacle of 3 touchdowns. So yeah, high touchdown upside is legitimately, as you said, 10 touchdown upsides there, but it's a backfield I'm just pretty much avoiding unless they fall into my lap at some point. There's so many other guys I'd rather have. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And on the other flip side, in Jacksonville, your boy Minshew, you've come on here and you've hyped him up at least 2 or 3 times this offseason. Are they just going to be hucking that rock all over the yard, or what's going to happen in Jacksonville?
Yeah, man, he's freaking 2019 Fitzpatrick is 2020 Minshew. It's all coming together, dude. He runs around. We all know he's fifth QB in rushing yards per game last year, and now he's even probably going to hopefully find the end zone once or twice as a rusher because they have no reason to give it to any of these backs they got remaining. Yeah, it just reinforces the idea they're going to let him play YOLO ball all season. I mean, Minshew and Chark are more and more just looking like the volume based fantasy stars on bad teams. We're going to get it, man. I just don't know that these running backs are going to really do all that much. I mean, I didn't move Chris Thompson at all. I don't think his role is going to change even a little bit. And, I think Raquel Armstead and Zigbo, not to mention, was it James Robinson's the other guy we got to worry about now? Like, it just smells like a big time committee. And then all the problems that we had with Fournette's spot in the first place, why we were fading him, 4.5 win total, not a good offense, not a good team. The defense is going to suck, so they're going to be playing catch up mode. Like, all those same issues also apply to Raquel Armstead and Zigbo. So I just think it's going to be even less volume than Fournette was getting. So, I mean, I'm not really targeting anyone on Jacksonville other than Minshew and Chark. And maybe Laviska. I'm starting to come around on him a little bit.
Yep, that's the one guy I was going to bring up. Is he played some of that wildcat role in college, pounded in 7 rushing touchdowns. It's kind of a bull. So, I mean, I think he was already going to be a good red zone weapon, in that path might be even more open to some good goal line red zone carries for Laviska. So he's like a really, I already love targeting him as a penny stock, and now I'm even higher on him. Trevor Sikkema of the Draft Network came on just about a month ago, even before Fournette was released, and he had him as Chenault as his number 3 ranked redraft rookie receiver. So, I trust his evaluation. I trust his calls. And now the path to volume's even clearer. So he's the only other guy I'd shout out there. And before we get into our must-haves, I don't know if I can sneak it out of the guy, the week 1 chopper, but either way, do you have any specific players or games that you're kind of targeting for daily fantasy that you're kind of locking in to begin the year here?
No chopper till midnight of the of the first main slate. Come on now, we know that. But yeah, I did a article last week, just a way too early look at the pricing and some of the main takeaways I had. Tyrod Taylor's looking like just prime cash game QB. He's only 5,600 on DraftKings. I mean, he's priced right there with Darnold, like Trubisky and Foles, and he's got this matchup against the Bengals. So I mean, if we're gonna go Tyrod, we're definitely doing it week 1. So they set the RB pricing floor at 4,000 instead of 3,000. So you're getting the value at wide receiver. The only running backs you kind of want to maybe look at are Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon are at 4,200 and 4,000. In the Washington RBs, Gibson and Bryce Love are at 4K because they had the Geis. The Geis release wasn't factored into pricing yet. So you can get some value there, but in a normal week, those guys would be like closer to 3K and it'd be better. So I think, the one guy that's really sticking out to me right now is Paris Campbell at 3,900, looking like the number 2 target in Indy. It's a good matchup against the Jaguars. Like, come on. And he can, make big plays out of nothing. We just didn't see him a bunch last year. DK Metcalf, I got to see some ownership pricing, man. He's the guy that stuck out to me when I was first, like, who could be a chopper candidate. I mean, against the Falcons, he's only 5,800. They're kind of over, like, the disparity between him and Lockett's too big for the target projection. Now, are they going to throw it? We'll see. So, Chris Carson at 6,200. Someone on the Seahawks offense, maybe, because this is a great spot. So I got to see, find. I usually use Adam Levitan's ownership projections to establish the run. So, I'll see what they're saying and see who's looking chalky, because I never wanted to pick a chopper guy that's, a consensus top player, top 5 projection. It's about finding that under the radar talent. So we'll see who it is, but it's a fun slate, man.
I can't wait. Yeah, the first week is always, it's like a kid on Christmas unwrapping his presents when you first see those prices come out. And there's some great ones. I've noticed there's tons of great running backs at under 7K, that kind of like tier of lower end RB1s. Mixon, Eckler, both 6,700. Sanders is 6,300. And he probably would have been pure chalk had he not gotten hurt. But now that, he's got that injury going on, he might be even crazier. I think Deshaun Jackson's at a pretty ridiculous price as well. They're facing the Redskins. So 4,900 for D-Jax could go crazy. And I love stacking my Panthers. You know me. I've talked about Brid. If Minshew's your guy, Teddy Bridge is mine. So I'm rolling him out week 1, getting a nice Panthers stack in there. Ian Thomas, 3,400. DJ Moore, 6,600. Who knows what's up with Curtis Samuel these days, but ultimately I like that. And then running it back with the Raiders on the other side. Brian Edwards is 4,200, and this was well before.
Are you really going to hold on? Are you really going to let one beat writer's eyes in this report that Curtis Samuel has been underwhelming? You're going to let that overshadow what we've known for years, that dude is a complete stud? Come on.
No, not at all. I barely adjusted my rankings. The dude is a stud, and he's going to be finally unlocked. I'm not buying that at all. Don't worry. Yeah. I just might not have him in my week 1 DraftKings lineup, but still, I've drafted him in almost every single best ball league I've done so far, every regular season league. I'm not putting too much stock into that. No. And McLaurin, our boy's only 5,600 too. So it's gonna be a fun week to say the least. I can't wait for it. We got a couple people just commenting in saying it's the too much swag on this channel right now. A lot of let's goes, PFF guest appearances. So the whole pack is pumped to see you on here, Hartitz. They love anytime you join. And we're going to be talking about must-haves now, and this, going to lead on. Speaking of the swag level, just went up.
PFF Lily, the divisional picker extraordinaire.
I love. So that's who PFF Lily is. Awesome, dude.
Yes,
that's fantastic stuff. So the swag level just went up that much more with the dog. Go. I love it. My parents have been begging me to make our dog a part of the show. So maybe I got to get, the Roto Street Monty making some picks.
Hey, there we go. I like it.
I love it. But let's start, right at the top. And it's kind of tricky to call a round 1 or 2 guy a must have because so much of it is dictated by your draft spot. If you're at the top, you're taking Christian McCaffrey. But ultimately, even if it's not must have, do you have like a strategy or a typical combination, running back, receiver? Are you going Kelsey if you can? Would you take the plunge on, Lamar? How do you attack those middle rounds? And is there a guy you're really hoping to land?
So what I'm trying to do in the top 3 rounds usually is I want 2 of those top 15 running backs. I mean, we know our big 5, we know the group. And I'm drawing the line at James Conner. Like he's the last kind of running back I'm reaching on. The Melvin Gordons, the David Johnsons, even Chris Carson, like Gurley, Taylor. If they fall to me, in round 4 or 5, like, okay, we can look at it, but I'm not taking them in the top 3. I don't want to reach on one of these running backs at that point because everyone does reach on them in round 3. So I'm not going to be that guy because as those dudes are flying off the board, that's when I'm attacking the wide receivers. I mean, look, I haven't been coming away with, much of Michael Thomas, Devontae, Tyreek, or Julio, but that's mostly because, you can get Hopkins, Thielen, or A-Rob, or even Galladay sometimes. Like these dudes are the ones that are available in round 4 or 5 still. And I just think, having done so many best balls this offseason, I mean, I just think really when you get those, kind of tier 1B receivers paired with tier 1A running back, better than we're seeing. There's some issues this week about Dalvin Cook and Kamara, but I think they're all kind of settling. And the Fournette thing was an example of I think when you can reach in the wrong way at the running back position and what can kind of happen when you're using one of these top 3 round picks on them. So sticking to ADP a little bit early and trying to get those stud running backs, and then later that's when we'll go upside. Take our chances more and more at the wide receiver position on guys I'm a little more confident in. So I hate the name we have for it. I have kind of been following this modified 0 RB. It's not 0 RB, so I don't know why we're talking about modifying it, but that's kind of like what I've been finding myself doing more times than not.
Yeah, I totally feel it. I have the same exact philosophy. If I can get 2 of those top 14 guys, lock them in. Is there like one of those running backs, that falls sometimes to that late first, early second that you're like, that's the one I'm hoping to get, especially in round 2 if I can get it? Because again, the top of the draft, who the big 3 are going to be. But is there anybody that you're just like, damn, I really wish this person falls to me at that turn?
Probably Drake. I think after those, I would include like it's kind of a big 6 now with Clyde Edwards-Helaire bumping his head in there. But I mean, it was a one-back backfield all year in Arizona, whether it's David Johnson and he gets hurt, Edmonds plays 94% of snaps, and Drake was balling out the second half of the season. So I had Dr. Edwin Porras on from Fantasy Points on the PFF fantasy podcast, and I was asking him like any concern about Drake, and he could not have been quicker about just no. I mean, all the reports, it's fine. He had a boot on last summer too, and Kingsbury's already just said, it's just basic nicks and bruises. The Hopkins hasn't been practicing a bunch either because he knows what he's got, and the guy's not going to run him out there and hurt him. So I think Drake at his, long career. He doesn't have, 225 plus touches in a season or something like that. Let's look at the most relevant split, which was, when he got to the Cardinals last season, and then he was the PPR RB4 the rest of the way. So if Drake can get to that turn, man, that's fantastic.
Absolutely. He's the one I was going to pick myself. They recently came out and said he's the straw that stirs our entire drink of an offense.
Nice.
I'll take that boot discount all day. I love that has him falling to round 2. So the boot discount is great. And as you just said, we both like to kind of pepper wide receiver once we get our bell cows, our first 2 guys, and then it becomes those wide receivers we look at. And I have a good guess as to which receivers you might pick because we've talked before, and I've seen, obviously I follow all your stuff on Twitter, but who are those receivers you love to end up coming out of round 3 and 4 with?
First of all, if I can get Kittle, man, I love getting him in round 3 if he's going to fall that far. I mean, literally 6th in the NFL, regardless of position, in receiving yards over these past 2 seasons. And no Manny Sanders, Debo, and Ayuk banged up, they're going to have to feed him. And I think, when you have that high-end talent getting that sort of potential high-end target share, I mean, look out. I know Kelsey's been the number 1 guy 4 years running, but I think 2020 is the year Kittle, takes that mantle as the fantasy's number 1 tight end. And wide receivers, it's been Adam Thielen and A.J. Brown a lot. I'm higher on them than the consensus. So, generally the Galladays and, Godwins and, Jujus of the world are kind of already gone. But, I want Thielen and A.J. Brown anyway over those dudes for the most part. So with Thielen, man, like, people were just too attached to that Stephon Diggs 94 targets number from last year. Never mind that they were like 94 of the most fantasy-friendly targets ever because they were using them as their field stretcher. And like, look at just the rest of Kubiak's career. I mean, guys like Andre Johnson and Rod Smith, even Steve Smith for a year. Like the guys were getting 170 plus targets sometimes, and on average, it's been 138 targets. So Adam Thielen, okay, even if he's not Andre Johnson, he's pretty damn good. And in 2018 was healthy enough at the end of the year to come out, ball against the Saints, and do fine enough against the 49ers in the playoffs. So love Thielen. And then A.J. Brown, I mean, I just think we're looking at a perennial top 5 receiver in terms of talent. And, I get the concerns with volume, but again, I wouldn't expect like the Vikings or the Titans to be, in that positive game script again in 2020 like they were last year. So, even if A.J. Brown doesn't get 150 targets, I mean, the things that dude could do with 115, 120 is just wild, man. I mean, he broke the PFF database for most yards after the catch per reception in a season. And I get the regression, but someone that good can regress and still be great. And like, don't just throw regression out there without considering the potential boost in volume. That's the main reason I'm on him. I mean, look, the efficiency guy, maybe going down the top 10, and the volume's actually going to get closer to top 10 where it should be. So Thielen, AJB, and George Kittle, sign me up.
Absolutely. Love all those picks. I've been landing quite a few of those guys myself. If Allen Robinson falls to me, I think I typically go him over Thielen. It's real close. I have him literally neck and neck in my rankings, but he's gotten it done so many years with such trash QBs that I love him. Graham Barfield said he could outscore everybody other than Thomas at the position this year on the pod on Tuesday. Silva came on, and just so many smart guys have been all over him that I've kind of taken my turn and put him pretty high up in the rankings now. And then I also just love coming out of round 4 with some sort of piece of that Seahawks passing game. I know Josh Gordon just landed there, but I'm not overly concerned. I think Metcalf is I have Lockett a little bit ahead, but also just something about owning Metcalf too, like in terms of 1,000 yard, 10 TD potential. That guy could just go crazy. So I really want to make sure I have at least one Seahawks receiver in my draft. And if I have to reach on Terry, if that's what it takes now, it used to be round 5 lock, but nowadays you kind of have to make that jump in round 4. So that I find myself doing that quite often. The only running back, and I don't know how you feel about this guy because it is a committee on paper, but Jonathan Taylor behind that Colts line, I mean, what an absolute stallion of a player. And he's going to be in mostly positive scripts, a friendly fantasy schedule for Jonathan Taylor this year. He is expected to be catching some balls. It's not like he's a completely inept receiver, as good as Hines is. So to me, he's the type of guy, especially if I've gone running back, and he could be my third. So maybe I could, stash him if I need be. But I have a feeling by, week 4 or 5, he's just going to emerge as a weekly top 12 option. in terms of just talent and situation. It lined up so well. It's going to take 3 weeks for him to take that hot hand from Marlon Mack, in my opinion, and just be a monster. Do you have any thoughts on Taylor? Am I an idiot for going that high on him? What are your thoughts?
You're good. I've moved him up a little bit over the course of the offseason. This is my RB 19 now. He was a little closer to that RB2 borderline before, but just look, he's going to lose some snaps to Marlon Mack, obviously. But the more I thought about it, was like you're running behind this offensive line. He doesn't even need the 20 plus touches that others might. And, there are some really smart people, out there evaluating running backs that have, compared this guy to, like almost a poor man's Saquon Barkley to an extent. So I don't think he's that good, but I also don't think he's, one of these typical Wisconsin backs that we've kind of seen bust over the years. It's going to be hard to bust behind that offensive line. And so it's, his ceiling isn't, RB1 level, like I think some people would hope because of Hines, because of Mack. But I mean, man, if they can get this guy, even 12, 15 touches a game, he's going to provide, RB2 value, I think, or at least flex more weeks than not. And like you said, man, the upside is he just takes over the backfield by, October. And then we're talking a legit RB1.
100%. And a running back I know, you've written about a bit, and we're getting the question on here is James Conner. And if I miss out on, Taylor in round 3, I often find myself, if I need a running back, I still typically go those receivers we talked about. But if I missed on those guys, or I went Kittle or Kelsey early and I need another running back, I feel pretty good about Conner round 3. Is he pretty acceptable to you in round 3 as well? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm getting him round 3 all the time, man. I mean, he's right there where, in that group of guys I want to come down with. Because look, whenever he's been on the field, he's been an RB1. Even last year with Roethlisberger hurt and Rudolph and freaking Duck Hodges under center, he was the RB9 before Conner got injured. So, we've heard, Tallman told us in the offseason, I'm a feature back guy. James is a feature back. He's going to be our feature back. We get in the training camp and it's like the least surprising news at training camp. Like the Steelers beat writers come out and they're like, yeah, it's going to be the James Conner show. It's like, we all know this. The only problem is if he gets injured. But guess what? Like, that's why he's available as, in the 3rd round, because he might get injured. I mean, it's almost like he's the person that everyone, he's kind of like what Leonard Fournette was last year, but he's actually on a good team where, it's, okay, maybe he'll get hurt, but that's already baking the price. And if he doesn't get hurt, we have a legit, 80% plus snap back that's going to get fed touches, man. So I think, he's a proven good back. It's the injury concern is real. I mean, look, there's not that many guys that it's not good when the injury trend is, going down in terms of missed games like it has been with Conner. But, in the 3rd round, I'm willing to take that risk.
Absolutely. And Benny Snell emerging as a clear handcuff makes me feel even better about that, because you can get him for free. He's honestly undrafted in most leagues. So when you get a free insurance policy that would also be a featured back, even if he's not as talented, that always makes me feel a little bit better about a round 3 investment like Conner. So we've loaded up on backs early. We've taken a couple upside receivers rounds 3 and 4. What about rounds 5 and 7? Are you just gobbling up more running backs, more receivers? Is there other positions you start to look at? What's your strategy in these kind of middle rounds?
If we're going 1 QB league, yeah, I'm probably going to keep gobbling up RBs and wide receivers. 2 QB or super flex. This is where I would try to make sure I get one of my top 8 guys. Yeah. Usually, I mean, it's just the dual threat guys. Lamar, Mahomes are going to be gone, but Dak, Kyler, Watson, Josh Allen, even Russ and Wentz. I mean, I'm fine taking one of those guys, and leading off with them as the QB. Tight end, I mean, again, I want Kittle early, and if I miss him, I'm probably not going to be getting Kelsey or Andrews either. So I'm waiting on tight end until double-digit rounds at this point. Some of the wide receivers I've seen fall this range that I'm scooping up whenever I see them. Stephon Diggs, man, you can get him in these like 6 rounds sometimes. And it's ridiculous because last year, I mean, John Brown was the PPR wide receiver 20, and Diggs has a lower ADP than that. I mean, unless you really think that they're just going to split targets between these guys, like right down the middle, and it's just not going to be enough target volume. Like, okay, but when you give up that many draft picks for the guy, and I love Smokey Brown, but I think Stephon Diggs is anyone's idea of like a true top 10 talent at the position. He's going to demand those targets. And I did see an interesting stat from PFF's own Andrew Erickson, where Josh Allen's deep ball is erratic as hell, but when he was targeting Dawson Knox and John Brown, two of his better downfield receivers, he was actually pretty accurate with it. So, I think part of it is, has he had the right players to really accentuate those skills of his? And now he's got the best deep ball receiver in football from last season in terms of just, yards on those 20-plus yard targets. So Stephon Diggs, he's got the boom, and, to have a receiver that talented going that late, I'm fine taking a chance on the new squad. I mean, look, like DeAndre Hopkins is on a new team, and he needs to reach his ceiling in order to pay off as like the wide receiver 5. Diggs is all the way down like in the mid-20s. So give me that all day. Will Fuller, I want man everywhere. Deshaun Watson's number one receiver. The guy actually apparently, put on some good weight over the offseason and seems to be in a healthier place. I'm just you're gonna start the guy every single week, and he's gonna give you some massive blow I and win you weeks. Like that is, even if he gets hurt at some point, like give me Fuller's 3 week winning weeks over, I don't know, even like Tyler Boyd or someone that might rank higher at the end of the year, but they're not going to give you the same sort of just boom performances. So prioritizing Fuller anywhere and everywhere. And then finally, I'd end with Deontay Johnson, who I feel like the hype train's almost like quieted down on this guy. I mean, in July, you're like me, man. We're in the fantasy streets 365 days a year. In July, it really seemed like Deontay was, catching on. But I haven't, and I feel like over the last 2 weeks, we've seen a whole lot more of a fantasy footballers, back and active on Twitter, but just still no love for Deontay. I know he's been banged up a little bit throughout training camp, but he's back on the field. And I mean, there seems to be no doubt that he's going to be out there as, a top 2 receiver for Roethlisberger. So kind of like James Conner, I just think the discount is too steep on a guy that, has legit wide receiver 1 potential, even if that's not the most likely outcome, expecting big things from Deontay. So Diggs, Fuller, Deontay Johnson, guys I'm consistently coming away with in that range.
Very intriguing name list. I find myself also peppering more and more wide receivers, and that's, again, get those bell cows early because there's so many. Toss out, Marquise Brown, those separation skills, that speed at 158 pounds and a screw in the foot as a rookie. Now you get a year of experience under your belt. You gain 20 nice pounds. You have the screw removed. I think he could take his game to a whole new level next year. So I'm thrilled about him. I think Edelman falls ridiculously far. It depends what you're looking for, right? There's a few guys like Fuller, like Marquise Brown that could just destroy your matchups and just win you weeks. And if you want that, depending on your lineup, great. If you've kind of taken those Hilairs, those question marks early, Connor, things that could go south fast, and you want a high floor, Edelman's going to see another 120 targets. It's the Patriots offense. I get Brady's gone, but it's always run through the slot, and him and Newton have apparently forged a really, really nice rapport in camp. So I love him. I also love Marvin Jones in this range. I think that's the splits between him and Galladay over their last 16 together with Stafford. It's neck and neck. So, I mean, I love those guys at wide receiver. If I do take a leap on tight end because I missed one of those early guys, I love Evan Ingram. I mean, the talent is so real, and I see him fall to like 7 or 8. Obviously, the injury concerns are as real as can be too. I get that they have a lot of weapons there, but you look at what Jason Garrett, now their play caller, the last time he called plays was 2011. So for 5 years up until 2011, he peppered Witten like 140 plus times every single season. That's Witten. Like, you give him this athletic freak who's been the star of camp. Everybody's calling for, monster season. He's been the main number 1 receiver. Everyone's trying to figure out, is it Slayton? Is it Tate? Is it, Shepard? I think it's Ingram, as long as we get 16. A huge if. I know that. But if we do, he's that guy that I think leaps into the top 3 and has a monster season. So he's a guy at that price. I think the injury's baked in for me. Those are my kind of middle round guys. Hopefully I don't need a running back because I already have 2 or 3 really good ones I feel good about. And then the last, I normally would have called him, we're going to move to around 8 and 11. I would have said this guy was 8, but at this point, J.K. Dobbins is kind of creeping up into round 6 and 7 range. And especially if I have 3 running backs and I can get this guy as my 4th, I love him every day in round 7, especially round 8 too, if I can somehow manage that. But he's like my favorite. If I'm putting someone on the bench to start, he's like the number 1 guy I want on my bench. I think by week 5 or 6, he's going to have this backfield as his own, whether it's an injury to Ingram, 31, or whether it's just he's just that much better, because I think he is. And that's no slight to Ingram. I love Ingram. I just think Dobbins is a monster. Plays biggest in his biggest games. I think he's going to light it up. So 7, 8, wherever that might be. I've already got 3 good receivers. I've got 3 good running backs. My 7th pick, I love making it J.K. Dobbins as well. And other than that, I don't know. What about 8 and 11? Is that where you start to look at QB? Is that where you're still kind of cleaning up scraps? Like who are you looking for at that point?
I like the Dobbins call, and especially, man, if you're in a league where you get like a lot of leagues, I have a couple where like you get one keeper from the year before, and you got to use that draft
Oh
pick.
yeah.
Like Dobbins is like I think the prime candidate that's going to be drafted outside the top 30 this year and potentially inside the top 10
Yeah.
next year because Ingram's contract's up. I assume they're not going to pick that up. I do have concerns, how involved is Gus Edwards going to be? How many touches is Dobbins going to get? But man, 2021, that's when we're really cooking. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's definitely a path to success this year as well. And I mean, at that price range, sign me up. So I'm probably still chilling on quarterbacks for maybe like 11 or 12, but I'm probably still chilling on quarterbacks for the most part in this range. The one tight end I might find myself reaching for in round like 10 or 11 is Noah Fant. I just think he is what we saw last year, just some of the yak he was able to create in big plays. And just you look at their kind of overall pecking order and behind Cortland Sutton, pretty muddled. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, I think, deserves to be the favorite to be a number 2 guy, but it really wouldn't be shocking at all if Fant, rises to the top and is a number 2 guy. I've seen some people throw around his splits with Drew Lock under center, but I mean, Fant was really playing through some injuries during that stretch. You look at his snap rates; it was like the only time all year he was playing 50% snaps instead of 80. So I think he gets that full-time rollback, second year in the system. Rookie tight ends never do anything, so the fact he did give us some. I mean, this dude is just an athletic monster, and he's going under the radar. I feel like compared to guys like Gesicki and Hawkinson, who are very good players in their own right, but I just think Fant has potential for more targets. So he's kind of the one tight end I've been willing to pay up for a little more. If he's gone, I'm waiting longer and getting my guys like Herndon later, but we'll talk about him a little bit more. This would be the range where I'm looking at start getting those key handcuffed 3-down RBs, and that's Latavius Murray, Alexander Madison, Tony Pollard, Chase Edmonds. Those are the big 4 to me. There's some other guys. You mentioned Benny Snell, Darrington Evans, or maybe some like later round guys that might get it. But I think those 4, Murray, Madison, Pollard, Edmonds, are the really confident ones that, would all arguably be, top 12 RBs on a weekly basis if their team starter goes down. So huge upside there, even if you're not getting the week-to-week value. Because I don't want, your Phillip Lindsay's, your Matt Breida's, really your James White and Tariq Cohen's of the world in that range. Maybe they do give you some solid like flex weeks, but you're never gonna like fire them up as a true RB1. Same can't be said for those guys. And then finally at wide receiver in this range, 3 guys I've been coming away with. Mecole Hardman, man, let's go.
Yeah.
Look, he's like he's like the only wide receiver handcuff in the league. If any of Tyreek, Sammy, or Robinson miss time, like he is going to ball out. And hopefully, like just throughout this offseason, he kind of takes Robinson's role anyway. Like he could produce with no injuries. And if there is an injury, like he's going to be freaking fine. So just set the rookie record for most yards per target. Like this guy's incredible. Like buy him. He's in that offense. Come on. Anthony Miller. Yeah, baby. It's happening. Nagy said he had one of the best training camps out there. I mean, look, it's a win-win no matter who's under center. He's been Trubisky's most efficient target of his career in terms of adjusted yards per attempt. And then Nick Foles, I mean, it's just historically fed the slide. It's why D.D. Westbrook was the top 30 receiver this time last year. But Miller, I mean, nothing against D.D., but I think Miller has shown way more NFL success at this point. Truly talented guy. And it's him and A-Rob in that pecking order, and that's it. And then finally, Henry Ruggs. I feel like we could see, I mean, how like Hollywood Brown looked after week 1 last year. He had the screw in his foot, as you mentioned. Like he wasn't able to, stay perfectly healthy, and it wasn't really the most pass-first offense to be involved with, obviously. But Henry Ruggs, I feel like, could give us, like a more consistent Hollywood Brown rookie season because he's got that same speed. He doesn't have a, pass-happy quarterback downfield in Derek Carr, but I don't think it matters, man. This guy is perfectly fine, just ripping off yak. He was the highest-rated receiver in college football last year just in terms of QB rating when you're targeting the dude. So screens, crossers, drags. I mean, Gruden low-key had a pretty schematically friendly offense last year. Things he was doing in the passing game. I think he's tired of featuring the tight end as the centerpiece of the passing game. I know there's a lot of Brian Edwards hype out there, but I think Henry Ruggs is the guy in Vegas. And I mean, the ceiling is really going underrated for him.
Yeah, I think all those picks are fantastic ones. Murray was one that I was planning to highlight. I mean, the dude averaged 34.5 points in his 2 starts last year. We get an epidural for Kamara, the contract. There's just like a lot of negative buzz flowing with Kamara. I know obviously he's a monster. I'm not saying don't draft the guy, but plant-based diet as well. We've seen that good players succumb to the plant-based diet. So if anything does happen to him, Murray's that guy that just wins you your league. So I love him in this range when he falls. I think Brandon Cooks, for all the reasons you cited, Will Fuller, if Fuller does go down, then you've got the deep threat for Deshaun Watson, who's one of the best deep passers in the league. So I think he brings a ton to the table in this range. And I'm liking Deebo Samuel, that, every report is he's running full speed right now. Might miss week 1, but it doesn't seem like something, certainly not the PUP, probably a week or two. So at around 9-10 price, I'm not starting him anyways. If he was starting, you're looking at a 5th rounder. So I love that discount. I'll take that all day. Stack my bench with him and wait on him. And I'm still kind of, we mentioned the Eagles. I love Deshaun Jackson and Jalen Reagor. Obviously, Deshaun a little bit more now because Reagor's going to miss some weeks. And the early season schedule is just an absolute joke. Like if you need an early season flex, if you did take a quarterback early or a tight end early and you need that round, flex or wide receiver 3, he's going to light it up early on in the season against some of these matchups, 15, 20 point blow up, 30 point blow up last year against Washington. I wouldn't be shocked to see him do the same exact thing in week 1 again this year. So I love D Jackson. I love stashing Reagor. He's going even if we move on to the late round list now with that injury, he's kind of fallen to, I got him at, I think 140 last night in my draft. And I know you're going to wait a couple weeks on him, but it reminds me, this would be ridiculous, but a little bit like Odell Beckham his rookie year.
I knew you were going to say that.
You knew it. Hurt early on. Killed it early on, gets hurt, misses the first couple weeks, but all the reports, dusting, Darius Slay, the best corner on their team, making fade catches in the end zone, getting, over the middle with bodies draped on him, screens. Like it sounded like he was that kind of Odell usage guy where they just give it to him, let him do his thing or pepper him deep. Every report was glowing. So I was getting him everywhere, when I could. And now that he's going to go down 5 rounds because of this injury that might only linger a week or two, he's another guy, more of a late round penny stock these days, but I love loading up on him. Are there some penny stocks? You hinted at Herndon and some other guys. Who are some of these, like you've stacked your starters? Maybe you've gotten, I do want to mention too in that round 8 to 11 range, CeeDee Lamb as well. I just have to shout him out. I just want a piece of that Cowboys offense. Yeah. And I think the cheapest bit of it, CeeDee Lamb, other than Jarwin, of course, but the cheapest receiver there could put up very comparable numbers to the 2 more expensive guys ahead of him. Cooper's hurt right now too. So if Cooper ever goes down, just kind of a reminder of his fragility or his less than 100% gutting it out type of play, CeeDee Lamb in a featured role with Dak in that offense could be just devastating, scary. And every report is he's just been up to the call as a rookie. So I love him as well. He's kind of one of my must-haves at 11 when he falls. It's smash that button, lock him in as well. But what about these penny stocks? These guys, after you've locked in your entire roster, you've picked up some of your higher bench guys in rounds 8 through 10, but those last round guys that you think could really explode, give us a few for each position, if you will.
Yeah, I have an article coming out tomorrow where I just did my top 10 favorite picks with an ADP outside of the top 150. So one of those guys is Mr. Chris Herndon. I mean, I can't go a podcast without talking about this dude, but it's for good reason. I mean, look, he is one of literally only it's him, Mark Andrews, Gronk, Hunter Henry, Heath Miller, Aaron Hernandez, Noah Fant, Jordan Reed, Zach Ertz, George Kittle, a bunch of studs. Only rookie tight ends to average at least 8 yards per target since 2000. Herndon was awesome in 2018. He didn't lose his job in 2019. He got suspended. Then he got hurt and he just didn't play. And okay, if he was still battling it out with Ryan Griffin, I would understand why people would maybe be, cautious and going back to this dude. But no, Adam Gase said Herndon's our starter. And you go and read any report from Jets practice over the last month, the dude's been balling out. Every single wide receiver for the Jets is hurt right now. I mean, even before even when they were healthy, though, it was Herndon, I think, should have been anyone's idea of, number 2, number 3 projected guy in the entire passing game. So we got a talented tight end going as the tight end 18 to 20 range, just because people are still mad about last year. Easiest potential Darren Waller in terms of, just a tight end that could literally become their passing game's number 1 target. I know it's Adam Gase. I know it's icky, but it's not costing you anything. You're not going to look back at your draft and be like, oh my God, if I hadn't have picked Chris Herndon in round 14, think about how good the season could have gone. And the upside is, you're going to be thanking your freaking high heavens you did draft him. So Herndon, number one tight end. I would say Jonnu Smith is the other guy. I would just, be looking to throw a dart at the position. QB, yeah, man. We talked about Gardner Minshew a little bit earlier, so we don't need to get too much more into it. But, yeah, he's, that late round guy that I'm just coming away with more times than not. You're not going to draft him to be your starter in one QB leagues. I would be hoping to have Cam or Joe Burrow at this point if I'm really waiting. But, I think as a backup or, as your second QB in a super flex or whatever, definitely more than viable. Wide receiver, one guy I'm really coming around to, man, Randall Cobb. I just think he's free at this point. He could lead the Texans in targets. The same things we said about Fuller and Cooks also apply. Just being in that offense, Deshaun Watson is going to keep putting up production, putting up points. I don't care who you surround him with. I think he's that good. And with Cobb, they're giving him $19 million guaranteed. You look at Kiki Kuti, he's had 91 targets in 16 games over the past 2 seasons. That was with Hopkins being the borderline, a legit alpha. We're looking at 14 target games for Kiki over the years, and he didn't have that type of guaranteed money sent his way. So, if you are one of these people that, you're not buying Fuller and Cooks because you just think they'll get hurt, that should be leading you to Cobb because, someone needs to get these yards and someone needs to get these targets. He's pretty much at this point, like a discount Jamison Crowder. People are going to laugh at you for doing it and kind of mock the upside, but he's going to smash that ADP. Steven Sims for Washington, a kind of similar case where he's a number 2 receiver on this squad, and there's, a light pecking order. So we'll see, someone behind McLaurin is going to produce. I think it could be Sims. He had a nice little run to the end of last season. And then last one. So I haven't explained this one out loud, and it's kind of scary to do so, but man, I think Carlos Hyde at the very end of drafts could be worth something because you look at last year when Rashad Penny was healthy and they played 2 games and it was like a 50-50 snap count between Penny and Carson. And Penny was playing pretty well, and then he got hurt, became the Carson show again. But they obviously brought in Hyde to be Penny insurance. We're expecting Penny to start the year on the PUP list. So I wouldn't be shocked if week 1 comes around and we look at the snap counts after the game and we're like, holy shit, this is a 2 RB committee in Seattle and they're running the ball more than anyone else. And, what happens when Chris Carson fumbles again in week 2? Does it become the Carlos Hyde show? Probably not, but it only takes, a 15, 16 round pick to find out. So I just feel like, looking at week 1, the possibilities, like they're playing the Falcons, man. There's a non-zero chance that Hyde, winds up with 15 touches, scores a touchdown, and he's on the top of every waiver wire ad going to week 2. I'm not excited about drafting the guy, but everywhere he goes, they seem to want to give him touches. You kept Nick freaking Chubb on the bench for 7 weeks. Now, I get that's coaching malpractice, and it's not so much, an indication of Hyde's talent, but, they didn't bring him to Seattle to do absolutely nothing. And again, it's pretty much free to find out. So
I like that call. It's gross to say, as you said, it's like, I never want to say Carlos Hyde to take, but there is a very real path to volume. They already said we're going to keep hammering the rock like 40 times, which still makes no sense to anybody, and it sucks. But if that's what they're going to do, you're looking at 12 to 15 carries. I like it. Definitely a decent shot at a touchdown. This guy's ranked on Fantasy Pros at 160. I typically take him round 8, so I don't know if that's going to actually ever be the case. But Antonio Gibson, for me, not an unknown name by any means. I'm certainly not the only one that's in on this train. But if you get him as your RB5 after Dobbins or so, Geis is obviously gone. AP's the only thing in front of him. And they're saying the quarterbacks have this guy on speed dial. They're peppering him so much. So all he needs is the usage. The guy is an athletic freak. Anytime he got the ball, he was making plays. So I love him. I like Hines a lot. They're saying, Rivers has targeted him more than anybody else in camp. I loved your Paris Campbell call too. I do think some value. The Colts are so cheap, and I'm not saying I love Rivers and I'm trying to buy in on all the Rivers stock, but I do think some of these guys that just do damage after the catch are really going to do some damage. Rivers just puts them in the position to succeed. So Campbell, Hines are definitely some guys I like. And Jerick McKinnon too. This is an intriguing year for running backs at penny stock. It's not typically this case, but I think he's got that third roll down on lock as long as he's healthy. And, the Athletic was saying he might lead this team in 20-plus yard receptions because he's like their best deep threat right now. Wow. They're lining out wide and stuff. So
we'll see
just
about
for
that.
a price of free, he goes at pick 200 right now. Never mind the upside. Like he actually only has to beat out an undrafted Raheem Mostert, who did look good. I like Mostert and how he fit that scheme. But if that and Tevin Coleman's your only competition for targets and for carries, and you're already getting all the money targets, like what if he did get a 3-down roll in a Shanahan zone blocking scheme? So that could be crazy. Harris was one of my guys, of course, too, Damian, but broken hand, now expected to miss week 1. Sadly, getting crossed off the list, unfortunately. You guys know Teddy Bridge. I've already talked about him at length, and his weapons, Curtis Samuel and Robbie A, are fun to stack him with as well late. And you mentioned Jonnu Smith. He's kind of my late stock, penny stock tight end. Just if Bill Belichick calls you the best tight end after the catch in football, and now you're projected to get a lot of more creative volume scheme to you, Arthur Smith saying we didn't utilize this guy as much as we could, and all the beat writers say it in camp, he's moving over. I mean, who's their number 2? Honestly, it's A.J. Brown and then Corey Davis. Get the fuck out of here. I'm long done with Corey Davis.
Might be Jonnu.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. I think it is going to be Jonnu because we know, Henry, I wish he would get 50 targets. He's not gonna. So I think it's going to be Jonnu. I think he's going to see a nice 80 targets and he's going to do a lot of damage with them. So those are my late round guys. All righty. Well, those are our must-haves, our guys that we really love to leave drafts with. Hartitz, you mind if I run you through the no huddle offense? You've been through it before. The questions are obviously different for 2020. You ready to let this one rip?
I'm a veteran of the game, man. I'm ready. Let's do it.
All righty. So after the big 3 of McCaffrey, Saquon, and Zeke, number 4 should be
Kamara still.
The next Dalvin, or kind of late first, early second running back who's top 5 in 2021 will be
2021. Fuck. I'm still gonna go Kenyon Drake. I know it's a little murky 2021, but I was thinking just like the next Dalvin, like the guy going out the turn that could be like a top 5 RB. I think that's definitely Drake.
Absolutely. Favorite fantasy team name you've had or seen before?
One of my buddies had Kareem Hunt and the Chiefs kicker, so it was Kareem and her Bucker, which was a pretty interesting one.
Oh man, that is. I like it. It's very
I like it too.
That is good. The next Godwin, that kind of round 4, 5 receiver who then explodes into the elite, will be.
Been saying it since January. Calvin Ridley. Don't overthink it, everyone.
Yes. 2020's Mark Andrews or breakout tight end will be
my guy, Chris Herndon.
Knew the answer. I just filled that one in for you. Most hated NFL player, ideally for specific fantasy specific purposes, would be.
Non-fantasy is Ty Montgomery because I freaking hate his number still. Like, change that, man. I'm going to go Jarvis Landry because I never end up with Jarvis Landry on my team, even though I always look into these drafts. I'm like, okay, why is he going this late? He's a value, but I never pull the trigger, and he always goes out there and produce. Like, it's just him and Tyler Boyd are like these slot receivers that get the targets, and I should be paying more attention to. And it's like a small blind spot for me. I got to be better about it. But, kudos to Jarvis for producing. I've not had nearly enough exposure to him over the years.
If there was somehow another Lamar Jackson or Pat Mahomes, it would be.
Kyler's the obvious one, but he doesn't really apply because he's going, QB4. So I think it's Gardner Minshew, man. Just he has the volume, has the rushing. He has top 5 fantasy QB in his range of outcomes.
Which early rounder, so first or second, do you think is going to bust the hardest this year?
I would say relative to their ADP, Hopkins is just kind of has to be that guy, man. He's been getting like almost 170 targets per year. Like if that goes down by 40 or 50, that's not going to be good. And especially if Kyler doesn't make the leap we're expecting him to. Now we got a QB downgrade and less targets. So I do have him as my wide receiver 5, but I mean, I'm taking all the running backs kind of up to 14, usually ahead of him. So I definitely see why, the Evan Silvas of the industry, have him in the teens. The talent could win out, but just in terms of who is most likely to do it, I think history tells us Hopkins.
Who do you think gained the most fantasy value since camp started this year?
Cam Akers looking pretty good to me. I mean, Malcolm Brown has kind of been seemingly relegated to just this kind of cup grinder. It sounds like the same role he had last year. It's not like he's the goal line back, but he'll get some opportunities to do that. And Darrell Henderson's just hurt. And I mean, he hasn't been there. Maybe he'll be ready by week 1, like they're saying. But either way, it's been more than enough time for Cam Akers to show what he can do.
Who do you think lost the most value since camp started?
Probably Devin Singletary. I mean, he wasn't in a great spot to begin with, but Zach Moss has taken over camp. And, this was the concern. It wasn't just that Moss was getting the early down work. We knew that was going to happen. Gore already had that last year. I mean, at least splitting some of the early down work. You know what I mean? But now it sounds like he's actually going to get plenty of targets to go along with that. So not looking good for Singletary.
Do you ever play Settlers of Catan?
No, but I'm intrigued.
It's a very good game. Very good game.
Okay.
One of these
I'll
days,
take your word for that. All
I'm
right.
only Sycamore. He's out of like 20 people. He's the only one that's answered yes to that question so far.
I had
So
to look it up. I was like, what is this, an ad read or something? But
it's a very nerdy game, but it's a blast.
okay.
The next sophomore receiver after, we know you're probably going AJ Brown. So who would you go after him?
Terry McLaurin, man. It's F 150 targets this year. Let's get it.
Love it. Do you prefer target hogs or workhorse backs?
I mean, both, but nah, I want the workhorse backs. Those are the ones I'm prioritizing in the early rounds.
Who do you think, speaking of McLaurin, the next Terry McLaurin or blow up late round receiver will be?
Sticking to rookies, I would say Henry Ruggs for the reasons I mentioned before. I mean, again, I know it's been Jared Cook, Darren Waller these last 2 years, but go look at some of those dudes on those Bucks teams, man. Joey Galloway, Keenan McCardell, they were getting fed.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara, Connor, Eckler were all top 5 running backs that you could have got after round 7. In 2020, that could be.
So we're looking at, like, I mean, Kamara, they had AP leave, so he was kind of down on the depth chart. Connor had Le'Veon hold out. Eckler had Gordon hold out. I think Alexander Madison fits that bill, man. Dalvin's the one kind of guy remaining where we haven't quite gotten that, contract or some like official word that everything is A-okay. There's just a lot of kind of rumors going around out there with the man. I don't think it's pretty. And, talking to some Vikings beat reporters, apparently one of the big, stories out of Vikings camp has been Madison really improved his pass protection. So I had concerns that like Amir Abdullah, for better or for worse, could take like Madison's pass down work. But it sounds like if Cook doesn't play, Madison will be the 3-down workhorse.
Love it. What are your ideal league settings?
Fucking no kickers or defenses. I can tell you that much. But I would say, use 2 RB, 2 or 3 wide receiver, tight end. I would say add a flex in general. I don't do enough super flex, but if you have 8 or 10 people in your league, add 2 QBs. I mean, there's more than enough to figure it out.
After MT Adams and then Julio, who do you think owners should draft at wide receiver?
I actually have Tyreek over Julio, man. Ooh. I mean, look, Julio does it, but you look at last year, and he went from being like the number 1 receiver in the league in a lot of efficiency metrics to kind of like top 5, top 10. So he's starting to get up there in age a little bit. I just worry it's getting to the point where it's almost like AJ Green, where we shouldn't have necessarily seen the drop off coming as steep as it was for AJ. I know like their team had something to do with that, but there's only so many years Julio can be, Julio.
Blank was the most important coaching hire specifically for which player's value?
Maybe not most important, but one I think I really like and is going underrated is Chan Gailey for Devontae Parker. I mean, you look at some of the wide receiver ones he's coached over the years. I mean, Brandon Marshall, Stevie Johnson, like these guys just got fed 150 plus targets. And I mean, it sounds like Fitz is the guy, at least for a little bit, and they're still a little worried about Tua's hips. So, I mean, I do think Devontae, after they paid him and just based on his second half performance last year, he's that number 1. And I mean, it wouldn't be shocking if he just led the NFL in targets this year now with Chan Gailey running anyone's idea of this pass happy attack.
And do running backs matter?
Yes, but the salary cap makes them matter less than any other position. I don't know why we have a salary cap, man, because if we didn't have a salary cap, then, the best running backs would have a disparity in their salary just like any other position. It's just, a matter of, okay, you can find, the 60th best running back in the world, is closer to the 10th best running back, but you look at the 60th best defensive end compared, obviously you're going to pay the positions that are harder to find, but I mean, it's still guys touch the ball 20 plus times a game. Obviously they matter.
And feel free to repeat the one you gave us last year, because I thought that's still my all-time favorite answer. But the funniest last place punishment or side bet you've ever witnessed or been a part of?
I'm not sure if I told you this one or not, but my last, and I want to say only time I finished in last in my fantasy league was 9 years ago, in my first year of my favorite college 8-man league. So shitty, but I finished in last this year because a fucking defense scored 25 points in the championship game. Anyway, I had to wear a Jets Tim Tebow jersey to class every Tuesday for a semester, and my freaking nerdy school, University of Chicago, was so weird. So the kids didn't even pay attention to football. No one even asked me about it. No one's ever like, hey man, it's week 9. You've been wearing that Jets Tebow jersey every single time I've seen you. No one even said anything about it. So like they must have just thought I was even weirder for wearing this freaking thing around. But it was, fairly humiliating.
You guys come up with some. So the one you shared last time, like it's always someone has to wear something every day of the week. It must be the same league because I think it was. You said they had to wear like John Cena jorts and like chains and stuff.
And the first time the kid went to class, they had a guy behind him holding a boombox, blaring his entrance music. Yes, that is the same league.
I love that. You guys definitely get after it, which is great. Last question here. What's your boldest 2020 fantasy prediction? And just remind our listeners where they can connect and find your work.
I've talked enough about Herndon. So I'm going to say Adam Thielen, wide receiver. He'll be a top 6 wide receiver. And that's, he is my wide receiver 6 in the rankings. So, with the bold predictions, I do try to, I want to pick some I'm actually going out and predicting, not just the top range of outcome. But again, man, I think low key, nice chance to lead the league in targets. Who knows what happens if things don't happen as smoothly. And yeah, man, find me on Twitter at iHartitz, IHARTITZ, Pro Football Focus, Fantasy Football Podcast as well. Week 1's around the corner. I can't wait. It's been 7 months of off-season content. We finally got some new stuff coming in. I'm pumped, man. Thank you for having me on. As always, I'm pumped to hopefully get another guest appearance and become that 10-time platinum member.
Hell yeah. Platinum member, no doubt we will have you on again, man. It's always a blast. Ian, thanks so much for coming on. Best of luck this year. I hope every single one of your predictions knocks it out of the park, that you're not having to go to Tebow, anywhere in public with a Tebow jersey ever again, man. But this was an absolute pleasure, as it always is. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, brother. Take it easy, man.
You too. All right.